裸になってどうしたおめ相変わらず無礼な反応じゃ。
When Boa Hancock first encountered a man who showed no interest in her body, it was unprecedented. Luffy had accidentally wandered into Hancock's bath, where he saw the slave mark on her back. Hancock immediately decided to eliminate Luffy, using her love beam on him. Luffy mistook it for some kind of repelling beam, but when the beam hit him, nothing happened, leaving both parties confused about each other. Luffy, being Luffy, simply jumped out the window to escape, but Hancock wouldn't let him off easily, striking him down with her pistol kiss. Luffy once again found himself being hunted on Amazon Lily, and during his escape, he managed to snatch Elder Nyan's meat leg. Elder Nyan recognized Luffy as the rookie pirate worth 300 million berries, and delivered a flying kick that sent him face first into the ground. Luffy was then surrounded and captured, brought to the arena where Hancock planned to execute this man who had defiled her. Margaret stepped forward to plead for Luffy's life, but the tsundere Hancock simply turned all three of his defenders to stone. Seeing his benefactors petrified, Luffy demanded Hancock turn them back. Hancock ignored his demands and called forth the arena's beast, a black panther. Surprisingly, the fierce-looking panther was sent flying with just one punch from Luffy. Since the panther proved ineffective, Hancock had her sisters take action, one with the snake-fruit cobra form, the other with the snake-fruit python form. Hancock's own ability, rather than being the love fruit of the Paramecia class, was more akin to a Medusa form. Luffy moved the stone statues aside, preparing to face off against the two snake sisters. Mari initiated the attack, which Luffy had no problem dodging. When Luffy dodged into the air, Mari launched a poison attack, but Luffy managed to change his position mid-air to avoid it. He attempted a counterattack at close range, but was repelled by Mari. Mari struck Luffy with her staff, sending him flying, leaving Luffy puzzled about why it hurt despite his rubber body. At this point, Sonya caught Luffy, putting him at a clear disadvantage. They mocked him for being weak and unable to use haki, and even used observation haki to predict his attacks. Mari timed her tail strike perfectly to send Luffy flying, expecting him to fall into a trap and meet his end, but Luffy managed to return. When Sonya threatened to smash Margaret's stone statue, Luffy unconsciously released his Conqueror's haki, stunning everyone present. However, Luffy himself wasn't aware of what he'd done. When Sonya attacked the statue again, Luffy didn't hesitate to shield it with his body. Hancock, curious to see how far Luffy could go, agreed to let him move the statues aside first. The battle resumed, with Mari launching another poison attack, creating toxic fumes that left Luffy slightly disoriented. He jumped into the air, using his balloon technique to disperse the poison gas, then activated Gear Second upon landing. Sonya unleashed her ultimate technique, the 8-headed snake, and although she could predict Luffy's next move, she couldn't keep up with Gear Second's speed. Sonya was repeatedly slammed into the ground by Luffy, and Mari was sent flying by Luffy's Gear Second rocket. However, the sisters weren't easily defeated, and they launched a combined attack with the 8-headed snake and flame snake god. Luffy countered with his jet Gatling, blocking all attacks. When the snakes collided, the flames began to burn Sonya, threatening to expose the slave mark on her back. Luffy quickly shielded the mark with his body, and Hancock hastily dismissed the Amazon Lily spectators. After the battle, Luffy requested Hancock to restore the stone statues, but Hancock gave him two choices: either leave to find his crew, or have the statues restored. He could only choose one. She expected to expose man's true nature, but Luffy chose the latter without hesitation. Luffy knelt to thank Hancock, who kept her promise and freed Margaret and the others. Luffy was then taken to Hancock's private chambers.
裸になってどうしたおめ相変わらず無礼な反応じゃ。
Hancock revealed the slave mark on her back to Luffy, who examined it carefully before noting that it was different from the mark he'd seen on Hachi's forehead. He didn't recognize the mark on Hancock's back. Elder Neon then urged Hancock to tell Luffy everything. Elder Neon knew Luffy's identity, and what he had done at the Sabaody archipelago a few days prior. In front of everyone, Luffy had beaten up Charlos, a world noble, though it was unclear how he ended up here. Luffy freely admitted his actions and expressed no regret for punching the world noble. Finally, Hancock began to accept Luffy and decided to tell him everything. The mark on her back was the hoof of the flying dragon, symbolizing ownership by the world nobles. She and her sisters had been sailing with a pirate crew when they were captured by slave traders. After being auctioned off, they became slaves to the world nobles and were branded with the mark. 4 years later, Fisher Tiger climbed the Red Line with his bare hands to rescue enslaved fishmen, raiding the Holy Land of Mariajois and freeing thousands of slaves, including the 3 sisters. To help the fishmen escape their slave status, Tiger formed the Sun Pirates and covered the celestial dragon marks with the sun symbol. Even for a proud warrior like Hancock, this humiliating experience was painful to recall. With her back still turned to Luffy, she asked if he looked down on her for being a former slave.
何言ってんだおめえ。だから俺天竜人嫌いなんだって。
Hancock took a liking to Luffy and agreed to take him to Sabaody Archipelago the next day, also inviting him to their celebration feast that night. If it weren't for Luffy's ability to lighten the mood, he might have been attacked. He performed his signature party trick of sticking chopsticks up his nose and taught them strange dances. Soon, Luffy was getting along with everyone, becoming quite popular. Luffy had no choice but to seek temporary refuge with Elder Neon, where he learned that Fire Fist Ace was scheduled for public execution. The world government was forcibly summoning the 7 warlords to participate in the war. Upon hearing about Ace's execution, Luffy became distraught. Ace was to be executed in a week. If he went back to Sabaody to meet his crew first, they wouldn't make it in time. However, if he took a marine ship directly to Impel Down, it would only take 4 days, leaving enough time. So Luffy decided to postpone reuniting with his crew. At this moment, Hancock suddenly fell ill, and when Elder Neon came to check on her, she suspected it was love sickness.
わしと共にモンキー D ルフィが来ておる。
Hearing this, Hancock immediately recovered, seeing Luffy was more important than any discomfort. Luffy requested her help to reach Impel Down, and while her sisters strongly opposed it, spitting venom in protest, Hancock surprisingly agreed. She contacted Vice Admiral Momonga, accepting the summons but requesting to visit Impel Down first. Thus, Luffy was smuggled aboard the marine ship heading to Impel Down, hidden beneath Hancock's cloak. Now, Hancock's thoughts were completely focused on Luffy. Everyone else was worthless in her eyes except for him. The love-struck Hancock showed her cute side, too shy to face Luffy directly, secretly expressing her love for his name in corners, and constantly daydreaming about feeding him. After receiving Luffy's praise, she wanted to learn more about his crew. Upon learning that Luffy had 2 female crew members, Nami and Robin, these women made her very anxious. But Hancock wouldn't give up on Luffy. Meanwhile, Sengoku received reports that all 23 marine ships tracking Whitebeard's Moby Dick had lost contact, leaving them without any intelligence on the Whitebeard pirates. After 4 days of sailing, Luffy's group finally arrived at Impel Down. The shadow boss of Impel Down, the Great Buggy, had been arrested and sent to Impel Down after accidentally stumbling into a marine temporary base while treasure hunting, though all his subordinates managed to escape. His devil fruit powers remained undiscovered, and it seemed like he had deliberately allowed himself to be captured. Luffy, still hidden under Hancock's cloak, finally infiltrated Impel Down, but entering the prison required a full body check. Hancock used her love beam to turn the female guards and surveillance Den Den Mushi to stone. Luffy seized the opportunity to move freely, and Hancock warned him that Impel Down was different from other places. He absolutely couldn't cause any chaos. Luffy held her hand and correctly called her name, solemnly promising not to cause any disturbance. Hancock completely lost her composure. After the inspection, Hancock followed Hannibal directly underground, while Luffy began his infiltration mission. It was at this moment that Buggy launched his prison break plan. It was as if he had been waiting for Luffy's arrival. He had concealed his devil fruit ability since his imprisonment, indicating he hadn't resisted arrest at all. The first thing this guy did after escaping was to show himself to the surveillance Den Den Mushi, stirring up trouble in the prison. At this time, Luffy had no idea how to reach the lower levels. While wandering aimlessly on level 1, Buggy increased the difficulty by triggering all the traps, with Luffy running down following the mechanisms. Buggy being chased ran right in front of him, as if everything was part of his plan. He pretended to be scared, but was actually just playing with the guards, giving them a spinning super slam. Though it didn't seem very effective, he continued fighting while retreating. Luffy came to help him deal with the situation, having already taken care of several other guards earlier. Learning that Luffy came to Impel down to save Ace, Buggy originally planned to escape on his own. But when he saw the armband on Luffy's arm, he recognized it as Captain John's treasure map and decided to help Luffy save Ace on the condition that Luffy give him the armband. Buggy, with his Chop Chop fruit powers, could split his body and control it in the air. Though his feet needed to stay on the ground, Buggy found a loophole. By having Luffy hold his feet, he could still control his flying body parts. Seeing Buggy's enthusiasm, Luffy gave him the armband early, but Buggy was so absorbed in admiring it that he crashed straight into a wall. Luffy thought they could just charge through, completely shattering the wall and ignoring the guards as they entered the Crimson Hell. For Buggy, this was child's play. He knew Impel down like the back of his hand. He dragged Luffy to the entrance of level 2, but the impatient Luffy jumped down before Buggy could finish explaining. This actually worked out fine. Buggy planned to ditch Luffy at this point, but while gloating, his head was cut off by an axe. Though the slash was ineffective against him, his body, including his feet, fell down. With just his head remaining, he tried to escape, but his feet dragged him down with them. Luffy unceremoniously grabbed his head and continued forward. Their first encounter was with a cute little hippo. Buggy scoffed at it being called a beast, only to have his body bitten off by the hippo. However, being the split man, Buggy could still control his body even after being swallowed, and quickly took down the small hippo. While he was bragging, a mantis appeared before him with razor-sharp claws as deadly as famous swords. Luffy just commented, "That's amazing," and the mantis immediately demonstrated its power by getting stuck in the ground. Seeing it couldn't pull its claws out, Luffy and Buggy completely ignored it, leaving while mocking, "You call this a beast?" But then a true beast, the basilisk, appeared before them. As running away wasn't a solution, Luffy used Gear 3rd giant pistol to take down the monster. Not only did he damage the monitoring room, but he also got the keys to level 2's cells. Buggy released all the prisoners on level 2, though Luffy didn't want to waste time there and grabbed Buggy to run. Coincidentally, Mr. 3 was imprisoned on level 2, and thus the prison break trio was formed.